5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms beyond these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitchtv.com/Andrew J. Polk. We're in all of those places because we really want to be able to have the conversation about the things that affect us here in the borderland, and that involves being more places than it used to be. I mean, monosource information was a thing there for a bit, but I would argue never really existed in absolute, the way it's sometimes talked about. I mean, back in the days of the big three and the broadcasters and the radio networks being the only source of information was never quite exactly true, because the conversations, the way people then discussed the information that came out, truly one of the most important things. You want to get really technical about it and delve into historic roots there. Newspapers themselves, some of the original media, if you want to call it that, came out of the discussions people were having in things like coffee houses, and people just writing down the discussions of the day to then be shared more widely outside of those venues. So that's the kind of spirit we are trying to engage here, and that's why we're in all those places, because getting to people where they're at, where they're able to have that conversation, is important to me, and I think should be more important to other people. But also here, of course, for the topics and conversations that we bring up, a couple of things on my mind today. More evidence of economic development in our area, with some maybe changing deals with Amazon facilities in town, but then also more distribution centers coming up in town. Some interesting reports there. Don't have to hide your kids and hide your wife more specifically as much anymore, as Pete Davidson no longer coming to the region to fly on Blue Origin. But there's a whole lot more to get into with some of those things. But also, this is the day of the week that we take on all topics and subjects, because there's a whole lot more than we can even get to. I mean, I've got some focuses, some important things that are going on, but there's a whole lot more than, even with us doing 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, we don't get to everything or all the subjects that are going on, or even the ones that are not as directly related to the immediate area. But in any case, this is the day when we take on all those comments and calls throughout the entire program. So we got that number up on screen, but you can also call in yourself if you want to, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, if you prefer talking about it that kind of a way, because we do have Free for All Friday on deck for us right now. Simple rule there, don't swear, because you're going to get dumped off air. But more specifically, we will take on all subjects. Just be like, again, polite in that way about it. There's a whole lot more than we get to, a whole lot more subjects than we always bring up. And so getting into it, taking on all those calls is something that I think is one of our more important things of the week here. And so, yeah, if you wanted to call in with your subject, we will take them all on today throughout both hours of the program. So, again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So, again, just one of those topics on my mind here today. More going on with, well, what's going on with economic development? Vic Kolnick, a couple of his headlines over at the El Paso Times coming out as of yesterday and today. Giant distribution center for Marshall stores takes shape on airport land in East El Paso. So a lot going on there. You may have also been aware of the Montana Avenue freeway project. I haven't driven out that way much myself, but I was seeing some of the development process of it, because it was always a little bit weird as you get out there towards, well, certainly heading towards Carlsbad if you get far enough out on Montana, but that it turns into a more traditional highway outside of city streets. But now they've actually been doing that work on it. People in the area are probably very familiar and very full of the headaches that come along with it. And part of that is, of course, to support probably better operations, or will end up supporting, if kind of depending on how you see the demand going, whether they're going to wait for this to be done or it's coming in because of this demand. Of more, I mean, the whole global reach area, if you've ever been out that way, the cargo areas near the airport just have a lot of logistical possibilities, because you got two sandwiched in between them off global reach, two major routes, both the Spur 601 And then, of course, Montana, as it continues to be built up, making it very possible to be quite the logistics mecca out there. And so 200 acres of airport-owned land out in East El Paso, shaping up to be that new distribution center. Again, you're going to want to see that report for yourself. Some great pictures of what is going up, just huge buildings. And that goes into the reason I bring it up, the whole contention that I've been having about the economic development we're seeing in the area and what that means, and what hopefully will continue on is, I think El Paso in a couple of weeks, we talked a lot about downtown lately and what that means for people trying to, build up buildings, bring more stuff down there, that whole downtown potentials we've discussed. And the contention I have is that El Paso is kind of lucked into CB, Central Business Districts, being more in vogue again, for lack of a better term, because for the longest time, generationally, there was the whole wanting to get out of crowded city centers and wanting to have the whole suburban dream that developed in the entire post-war period. So we're talking literally generations here. But now there's an impetus of people being like, okay, sure, I could have that, and have to drive everywhere, but maybe they want to live somewhere where things are just available and walking distance. Those kind of concepts that have been coming up more. And El Paso's downtown is kind of uniquely positioned because it's not exactly the best development. Parking has been the long-time issue, but we've got new big structures that have got up, including next to the Paso del Norte Hotel, the whole street bridging parking unit that I'll freely admit I haven't actually gone to since it's been completed. But interesting prospect, even if there was some concern about the ruining the view down, is that Texas Avenue there, if I'm not mistaken? I might be mistaken. I'll look up a map on here in a second. John Browson, listener, to lower the audio online a little bit. Appreciate the audio advice. See if that helps out just a little bit. Anyway, point being about the downtown development is that one of the things about El Paso's history, again, not trying to make this into a review of history and its impact on the modern world kind of thing, but El Paso's downtown developed in that kind of strange in-between period of between essentially animal-powered things and then gasoline-powered things, between horses and vehicles, which is why I think it was up until the 1940s, actually, there was still a drinking fountain specifically for passage animals. Your donkeys, your horses, I don't think it was exactly like Clydesdales, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were, but those kind of things in downtown up until, into the 40s. So that's when El Paso's downtown, a lot of the historic buildings down there really developed that have now come back into interest. So point is, not exactly a whole lot of parking considered when it came to much of the construction for downtown. Now, of course, things have been retrofitted, and that's part of the impetus of why there has been such an amount of surface level parking lots coming out of otherwise useful buildings, because, kind of a push-pull with that level of demand. But El Paso, I think, has lucked out that we still have a good chunk of buildings available, even if needing a decent amount of work on them, in downtown El Paso as downtowns have come more into demand, or are coming more into demand. And I think that's going to be a similar kind of situation we're looking when it comes to these other economic activities. Again, we're working on more interviews for you, but you look at what is going on with, more distribution centers, new companies coming into town, reinvesting in town, buying companies in town, or another one, again, Vic Colness of the El Paso Times headline here: city alters multi-million-dollar deal for West Side land where Amazon facility may be built. To my understanding, any of the Amazon facilities getting built into town are totally, the way it's being talked about from those that are authorized to talk about it is totally, well, we can't comment on that until the sign goes up, basically. So you can read the tea leaves for yourself there. But another multi-million-dollar, dozens of millions of dollar Amazon distribution facility on that piece of land where that Great Wolf Lodge was supposed to be built until, and I mean, that deal was all but inked, to my understanding, right up until the pandemic hit, and they pulled way the heck back. So I don't think that's coming back. But hey, even if it's maybe more of an eyesore for the area, not exactly going to be a tourist destination, but hey, major employment. And really, I think what comes along with the distribution centers, besides, maybe that whole same-day shipping possibility and drone fleets rising out, we did some theorizing back when Amazon ended up buying, Whole Foods, that what if there was a drone fleet that rose out of there? This would actually be much more feasible. It would be an interesting, I'll believe it when I see it. The ground-based delivery drones seem to be a little bit more, at least not in terms of violating FCC or dealing with FAA, rather, policy. That's its own whole can of worms that comes along with it. But if this is moving through there, my contention is with these additional distribution centers, that's part of the reason we don't have some of the major businesses that exist regionally. Just to name a few off the top of the head that people seem to gripe the most about, you got your Buc-ee's, you got your Trader Joe's, you've got your, previously Whole Foods. A lot of those end up becoming for the companies that it doesn't make sense for them to be here. Their supply chains, they'd have to completely revamp them in order to support operations in this area because, again, previously, back rooms were not exactly a thing anymore. It was all based off of the Joel just-in-time supplies and what you can get from your distribution center. So if you didn't have the distribution center availability and were really stretching out your supply lines, it didn't make sense for a lot of companies. So Amazon is now showing, hey, by the way, we see value, are one of the most expensive and valued companies in the history of the world, seeing value out here to do this. That is probably going to lead to just a little bit of an inkling for some of these other major companies that have their own distribution networks they need to set up that, if Amazon sees value out here, well, what are we missing? Why shouldn't we go look at that as well? Now, of course, there are other economic situations that come along with it and analyses of our area, shall we say. But I think what Amazon is going to figure out before too long is, and a common issue that comes along with this is that, okay, you look at a satellite map of our region, you'd be hard-pressed to separate, if you didn't know exactly where to look, the actual city mass of Juarez and El Paso. Like, unless you know exactly where to look to trace essentially the border, it looks like one giant, metropolitan area. But in terms of most business analysis, things like, personally speaking here, ratings, all stops at the border. They don't consider that, as opposed to, go to Cielo Vista and look at the cars in the parking lot and what the license plates are. There's a whole lot of cross-border traffic and interest in buying of things. But for some reason, most business analysis does not even get to consider that southern. Well, it's a different country. Why would he consider it? Because it's right there, dude. And so I think Amazon's going to find themselves probably reaping more than they realize if they weren't smart enough to ultimately undo that whole analysis of not considering south of the border. And I think other companies will start waking up to that. And if you continue this trend we are seeing in the area, I just hope so. John Browson saying follow the border wall. Sure, but again, we're talking like, literally above 30,000 feet view. Try to trace it here. And that's a lot of the ways the analysis comes in. So you'd be hard-pressed to really separate it if you're looking at it from that, what I'm saying here. But we are well overdue a break for right now. So again, we are doing that whole free-for-all Friday thing. So if you wanted to call in during the show, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM, taking on all topics, all callers, all comers here today. This is what we do on Friday. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 54 Gateway northbound, watch for a stalled vehicle that's blocking the left lane there. Stay right. I-10 eastbound at Thorne, another disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Liberty Expressway westbound at Chaffee Road, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And Loop 375 northbound at Zaragoza, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Last year, Lowe's completed 100 impact projects in communities across the U.S. as part of 100 hometowns, benefiting more than 1 million Americans. This year, they'd love to do even more. Nominate your hometown project in need by March 28th. Visit Lowe's.com/hometowns to learn more.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Grab your family and watch the 2022 iHeartRadio Music Awards Red Carpet Live, presented by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to see everybody. Shout out to all who got vaccinated, get your kids vaccinated.
So events like this are safer and just more enjoyable for all.
Live stream the exclusive Red Carpet pre-show March 22nd at 7/6 Central on iHeartRadio's Facebook and YouTube channel.
Thank you guys so much.
Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov.
Wesley had IRS troubles.
They told me I owed them $43,000.
It got really bad.
Coming after my house, my car. I seriously thought that I was going to lose everything.
Wesley called Optima Tax Relief.
Oh, they were great people. Optima Tax. They know what they're doing.
Optima Tax Relief came through with flying colors.
I saved an incredible amount of money. Call Optima Tax Relief. Don't trust anybody else.
Call Optima for a free consultation. Call 800-783-8055. 800-783-8055.
Optima Tax Relief.
For details, visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of stuff we get into in all of these conversations. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso is probably the arguably main one, as close as we get to it anyway, because that's where the Skeptic Squad lives for the most part here. A lot of comments coming in right now. RJ, John Brazelton, Keith Weldon, and more tuning in, liking, and commenting over there. Michael Robert Tipton, of course, my guy over there. Of course, be sure to tune in and check out his page, The Tipping Point with Mike Tipton. You might hear a familiar voice if you happen to turn over to 1380 a little bit later, next hour, as a matter of fact, here. But not that you want to get away from, of course, the most engaging talk about El Paso and all of the issues about it. Some other comments coming here. RJ with some analysis of our trade and transit systems here, saying Cielo Vista Walmart is #1 in the U.S. for a reason. The Frontero Chihuahua plates. It took me the longest time, and I feel kind of silly about it in retrospect here, understanding what the phrase Fronchi meant. I mean, I knew girls from Loretto and the way they would use that phrase, but it took me a while. Someone had to explain it to me that, the Frontera Chihuahua, Fronchi, I don't know. It took me way too long to get that. But also going on to say, we do now have I-10 and 2554 Montana. Regards Tell's figured out why not Big Biz. That's a bit of a spicy take on there. But, I mean, distribution is important, even if we are looking at other issues that come along with when you're talking about cartels. I mean, the whole Narcan discussion going on lately, I think one that should be looked at, making sure that the people aren't suffering as much from the impact of the cartels. But when it comes to businesses here, I have no doubt that there's a lot that has been overlooked previously. More specifically, years ago, did a report on the Santa Teresa area, that whole overweight cargo zone out there, logistics mecca. That I'm still very interested in the development because it's one of the more interesting ones for the region. I mean, no, that's technically New Mexico, but the regional economy is absolutely affected by it. And the supplies and the capability out there. There was actually a point at which there was no more top-level space, warehouse space out there because, among other things, and this is where I get into the business analysis part of it, the old Hoover plant that is now, I don't recall what it is now, but the one there at the corner of I-10 and basically Trans Mountain, but on the west side of the mountain, the part that I guess we're now starting to call Northwest El Paso, right on the edge of it, that building was vacant for at least a couple of years after Hoover moved out of it. And so it made it look on paper as if regionally there is hundreds of thousands of square feet of vacant warehouse space. Why would we build more? And it was not looking at the more slightly in between macro and micro level economic realities of our region. That was one huge facility that any one person or one company would be hard pressed to use, but the intermediate levels, the something like just under that level and not the tiny storefront style stuff, was very much in demand, so much that companies were building their own in anticipation of it. And I think we're looking at another potential boom in our area like that. I remain bullish on El Paso and will continue to do so. But I have, of course, threatened to take phone calls here because the number to do so, as we do on Fridays, 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM. We have a couple callers on the line here right now. We have a Jimmy in Northeast with us right now. Jimmy, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good. I like listening to you. I like to, you listen. I respect your opinions too. And okay, one thing.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about the security. Okay,
the
other day I went to Juarez and I did some shopping there. I'm not gonna nothing about the prices, but I felt more safe there because there was a lot of the Mexican National Guard was there. The federales were there, the judicial police, which is your state troopers, and the municipal police were there patrolling the area. And when the army comes around, I think there has a tendency that the violence might go down a little bit. I don't know how much, but I've got to tell you one thing about El Paso. It's not the safe city that it used to be because they bring in all these criminals from out of town. The state dumps up all that trash over here. And to the there's some I don't know some place that they stay out there in Horizon, and they're dangerous to the public. And another thing is we're getting some of these people, that they let go from UMC from the behavioral center. Some of them can be pretty dangerous, I don't talk to them at all. I don't trust them or anything. But just saying, and El Paso's crime rate has gone up during from 2020 and up. The homicide rates have gone up, and also assaults. And I remember when there was no fights in bars. Now there's even homicides inside the bars. El Paso's not the safe place that it used to be because probably a lot of people are moving in from outside El Paso that we don't know what kind of people they are, and that's what's causing the part of the crime rate to go up. But that's all I can tell you. Cielo Vista used to be a perfect place to go shopping, but remember, they've had their shares of fights and stabbings there, Cielo Vista Mall, inside the mall. And so, so I don't know whether they say El Paso's a safe city, but that also El Paso has in the county, there's a lot of registered sex offenders and pedophiles here. And you can get that's public information. You can get it from the sheriff's department or from the police or from the Texas Department of Public Safety. So I don't consider this city a safe city like it used to be. And because I grew up in this town, when you could walk to school. You didn't have to worry about people trying to pick you up. El Paso was a safe city, and you could walk. There used to be a curfew at night at 10. You had to be at home by 10. And then I remember when they used to have those vagrancy laws that, I think they were declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. You wouldn't see that many vagrants out there, begging for money. But that was it was the Supreme Court declared that law unconstitutional, not just El Paso, but throughout the U.S. That's all I'm just telling you. It's not the safe city it used to be. And I don't know why these people from out of town, it is. Yeah, but they're going to find out. I just hope they don't have their home. And also we have a high burglary rate here in El Paso, too, and armed robbery rates. So I just let you know the facts, what's going on. And sometimes the police don't do their job. They get there too late. They'll just take a case report. They'll write up a case report. And they say they're going to investigate. I don't know if they do, but you may call them about a week or two later, and you may not get a hold of the detective, investigating that armed robbery or whatever happened. But I'm just letting you know that I guess they're understaffed here. They need at least about 200 or 300 more police officers to hire, here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the issues that have been going on with staffing when it comes to the El Paso Police Department has been multi-year at this point. And I remember looking at some of the budgets and the budgetary process, specifically for El Paso City Council, when it came to hiring of police officers, hiring of other support staff, building of new facilities, the whole Pebble Hills Police Department and Regional Command Center that was basically most of the east side at a certain point. Now, they've, of course, since then broken ground on newer facilities and more regional ones to hopefully support that. But you're all right that there has been an issue here. Don't know the current rates offhand, but I spoke to someone in the past that they had a break-in of their house. They returned to it. They found it, and it took, unfortunately, 9 hours response for an officer to come out to file the report and that kind of a thing. Basically, over the years, again, not totally up on the current situation, but there have been previous points of time that El Paso Police Department has about 9 levels of response here, that if someone's like being held at gunpoint right now, yeah, that's a level 1 response here, my phrase, not theirs. But if it's a non-violent crime or a crime that happened after a bit and there's no current danger, it drops in the priority list. So if it's not in those first couple or few categories, it can drag on a bit, and that has been a perennial problem here in El Paso. And we have seen crime rates across the country, but even those unfortunate homicide rates or the violent crime rates that we have definitely talked about on this program, it's hard to pin down exactly where it is year over year since we're still into it, and there's still not a whole lot of data out for even last year just yet. But I mean, just the amount of issues that are then climbing to the top of notice for everyone here. I mean, school districts going into lockdown over that kind of stuff of potentials, it tends to gain a little bit of notice here. So I still contend that El Paso is a decently safe city. I mean, I've lived in some other big cities that have way worse problems than we do, DC amongst them. But I mean, that's not exactly a consolation for what the trends that it might be seeming like we're seeing here. It's like, oh, they have it worse, therefore you shouldn't complain. I'm not on board with that kind of line of reasoning at all here. And I've actually done reports on that facility you were talking about there, the El Paso multi-use facility and the El Paso Transitional Center out there on Horizon Boulevard, because there's a couple different levels of security involved even with that facility, but there have been people that have absconded from there, and just a lot of questions about how that's handled. I've spoken previously, like with State Rep Joe Moody, did some reporting with him on the laws involved for how that kind of a facility is handled. So there are certainly concerning things going on in town and around the world here, which is why I think it's important to discuss them here, because if there is a sentiment about the changing security level even here, I mean, if anyone else is believing there that they feel more safer in Juarez than they do in El Paso, that's a little bit of an issue. I will fully agree with you on that here, but we'll have to get more into that here. So I think for the point in the call, we got to hit that next break right now, because trying to keep up with what we got going on the breaks here. So we got more calls on the line. We'll get to those. And if you want to call in, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Amanda Guillen. Las Cruces police are confirming a dog attack involving an 84-year-old woman and 2 pit bulls. The incident happened yesterday evening. Police say the woman suffered severe bites to both arms. She was brought to a hospital in El Paso, and her condition is unknown, but we'll keep you updated on air and online. An intense hostage situation is over, and 3 children are safe after a standoff in East El Paso. Now, police were sent to a home right across the street from the Hanks High School football stadium just before 3 yesterday morning. That's where officers say 42-year-old Jose Diaz armed himself with a knife and was holding 3 kids hostage. Police say at one point, officers surrounded the home and fired at least 1 shot, but no one was injured. The kids were released around 4 yesterday morning, and Diaz finally surrendered to the SWAT team at 8 a.m. With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Amanda Guillen.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking your El Paso Friday traffic. A stalled vehicle is blocking the left lane on the Gateway Boulevard northbound at Hondo Pass. Loop 375 southbound at Montana. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Lee Trevino Drive northbound just south of Montana. An accident reported there. Take Edgemere or Yarborough to get around it. And Wrestler Drive southbound at Pitt. An injury accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Severe Weather Center. This is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We had plenty of cloud cover and a cooler day for our Friday, but now as we get going into the weekend, it is going to turn out to be a lot nicer. In fact, we've got warming temperatures, and we will see the return of near 80-degree temperatures on Sunday. The unfortunate part is we'll also see our next weather maker on Sunday bringing back more winds and dust and a shot of some rain to kick off next week.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Last year, Lowe's completed 100 impact projects in communities across the U.S. as part of 100 hometowns, benefiting more than 1 million Americans. This year, they'd love to do even more. Nominate your hometown project in need by March 28th. Visit Lowe's.com/hometowns to learn more.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive, and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
I bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Something that I like to do, even if I can't totally rely on international travel plans. I mean, the instability we talk about in the world is affecting more than just the geopolitical situations, but affecting my, post-COVID lockdown plans. Something that I'm still doing to make sure that, at the very least, I'm taking my taste buds around the world is your local source of quality flavored olive oils and balsamic vinegars enhanced flavors. They get the supply from around the world and bring it right to here, so you don't even have to leave home because they'll bring it straight to your house even, because, of course, their olive oils are imported from Tunisia, Italy, Greece, and Spain, and all of their balsamic vinegars imported, of course, straight from the Modena province of Italy, which is some of the best stuff you're going to have here. Don't accept substitutions and get the best stuff and really spice up your life. You can find them, of course, over at enhancedflavors.com, but more specifically, they're going to be out in the community, including this coming weekend, the Upper Valley Farmers Market, this coming Sunday, the 20th. And of course, you can find that in the Hobby Lobby parking lot right down there near Mesa and Crossroads, Mesa and Donovan. So it's a good time to get out there, get some fresh air, enjoy this weather while we have it, and of course, really taste some of the great flavors you can get from your local source. Again, find all the information they got, and there's going to be out there a couple of weekends now. But again, enhancedflavors.com, website to visit there, enhancedflavors.com.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Glenn Stewart, in regards to our recent caller here, that Jimmy in Northeast nailed it, Sanctuary City, him pointing out here, what a word got out, so yes, El Paso is getting some characters, both in terms of housing prices on that, but I don't think Jimmy was necessarily talking so much about Sanctuary City aspects as just, some of the facilities that are in the area. I mean, if you go out, just kind of on that similar subject, you head out 54 towards, or when it turns into no longer the highway, but towards Oro Grande and out that way, you run into that don't pick up hitchhikers in that area kind of thing. Heck, even towards Las Cruces. There's a lot of facilities in our area, some of them more porous than others. Again, that halfway house there, one of the more concerning ones that I've done reporting on in the past year, and it just had kind of perennial problems. And maybe a couple of questions coming up about, the private prison industry, because it is a privately run facility on the behalf of the government, one of those kind of situations here. But also coming up, hard to ignore, of course, March Madness going on, and we'll dip into it for a second here. John Browson saying Texas leading VA Tech by 17 with 5 left. A current check on that actually looks like Virginia Tech just scored, according to my live update score here. So still leading 66-54 Longhorns over Hokies, but And there was the extra point right there. So you keep your eye on that. But, of course, expect more on that over on our sister station, Fox Sports 1380 AM. Then some more conversation coming in from RJ as well. That kind of thing. We get a lot of that here. But Michael Perez, more on the point we're making here. A good example of what the caller was saying is in El Paso, took in a bunch of people from Houston after Hurricane Katrina. El Paso then developed problems that never existed before. Don't know if I totally subscribe to that. I do recall at my point in time, was in high school at that, and there were some people that ended up coming into our school here that very displaced at the moment, and didn't fit in quite that well because El Paso works differently than other cities. I will agree with that, absolutely. But let's go back to those calls on the line here. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, doing that whole free-for-all Friday thing where we'll take on all comments and calls throughout the hour. But right now we do have Jerry in the Northwest on the line here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. I have a question. Yesterday you mentioned something about the state of Texas blocking people from boycotting certain portions.
Yes.
You said something about a B. Is that the BDS movement that you were talking of?
BDS. No, I don't think quite there, but let me pull up that here right now. So this is more specifically the state controller's office, the right way to put it here. So no, it's not the boycott, divest, more is Israel-focused issue. BDS, thank you. Sanction issue. This is basically just on the firms getting rid of their holdings of oil and gas industry, energy stocks in general kind of situation, that they will no longer be allowed to do contracting with Texas. More specifically, the Texas Controller, Glenn Hagar, sending out a news release earlier this week saying they're seeking information on 19 firms specifically to, as the Texas Tribune put it, to determine whether they are violating a new state law that prohibits companies from boycotting fossil fuel companies. So I guess you could see it in a similar vein, but different implementation. It kind of goes a little bit more along the lines of, I guess, what Abbott has said more recently, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, about Midland, not Moscow. But this comes out of Senate Bill 13, passed during the, most recent set of sessions of the Texas legislature.
From last year. Yeah, so maybe that has to do also with this ESG portion, because there are groups out there that are blockading or boycotting, and they're wanting to change off of fossil fuels and go to electric, but we're not ready for electric. Basically, they had to shut down California this past week and tell people not to charge their cars because they didn't have the energy stored up to where they could charge their cars and not create brownouts. So there's a problem still exists, and I know that California is a lot further ahead of the rest of the nation as far as this ESG goes and such.
So actually, very specifically, that was a phrase mentioned by Hagar in that release. Just quoting from it here, our research thus far shows that some companies are telling us in other energy-producing states one thing, and then turning around and telling their liberal clients in another state another thing. On one hand, they push net zero and other environmental, social, and governance (ESG) policies, and use their influence in the dollars under their management to limit access to capital for Texas oil and gas firms. Then the same firms tell Texas and other states that they're committed to the fossil fuel sector. End quote. That again directly from, Texas Controller Hagar's release on Wednesday of this week. So very much a part of what they are putting out as they are looking at this. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. I'd like to address another question that one of your callers brought up, asked about.
Sure.
His name's Frankie. I don't want him to go OCD on me again because I call him Frank. But anyway, the person that is a tyrant is our neighbor to the north, Justin Trudeau. You don't call a state emergency and put a nation into a real emergency portion for people that are parked and refuse to move their vehicles and are having carnival type settings or picnics out on the street. I guess you would call them gatherings, and just because they're protesting something they don't like, You don't put your nation into martial law for that. That is tyrannical. Okay. And the other one, as far as Hillary Clinton, if he wants to look it up, and he can, all he has to do is ask Juanita Broadwick, Leslie Milwee, Paula Jones, Kathleen Willey, Jennifer Flowers, Elena Wellstone. Now, he could also ask Bashar al-Assad of Syria, the president, but the people he cannot ask is Egypt's former president, Hosni Mubarak, or Libya's former leader, Muammar Gaddafi, because both of them are dead due to Hillary Clinton's actions. So, yes, she is a tyrant. Thank you.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you for the
day.
Yeah, no, you too. Have a good weekend there. Thank you for the point in the call here. Yeah, Trudeau significantly unimpressed me with the whole response to the trucker situation, and I was not having a whole lot of sympathy for the think pieces coming out about it. Oh, the honking is so terrible. When will this long national nightmare end, coming from the Great White North here? It struck me as completely ignoring the issue at hand and going straight to, I mean, most of Trudeau's statements that I saw did not end up coming out to, okay, here are their concerns, here's our response. And it was just this is terrorism, or just this shy of calling to it. And if you're just going to miss the point by that much, so I don't even have to duck you so far over the head of it, what are we even doing here? And so even though we saw the convoy kind of fizzle out in the United States anyway, as the war in Ukraine kind of took over, and of course gas prices also still seeming to climb here, which has raised additional questions in its own right, of course, because I mean the oil prices have come back down a bit, but I'm still seeing $4.20 and not in all a good way whenever I go to the gas pump here. So we'll have to check in on that situation here further. More comments coming in over on the social media here. We'll get to that and a whole lot more. But again, if you wanted to call in during the show, number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do for that next break right now. We'll squeeze in a couple more before the top of the hour news in our next segment. So stay tuned for that. And again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more here on Talk El Paso. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso Friday traffic. A stalled vehicle is blocking the left lane on the Gateway Boulevard northbound at Hondo Pass. Loop 375 southbound at Montana. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Lee Trevino Drive northbound just south of Montana. An accident reported there. Take Edgemere or Yarborough to get around it. And Wrestler Drive southbound at Pitt. An injury accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down on your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Excludes factory rebate and dealer discount plus DTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. It sure feels good to step into a warm car after letting it heat up for a few minutes. However, this practice wastes gas, increases emissions, and pollutes the air. Limit idling your car to no more than 3 minutes to save money at the gas station and improve air quality. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/earth.
Grab your family and watch the 2022 iHeartRadio Music Awards Red Carpet Live, presented by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to see everybody. Shout out to all who got vaccinated, got your kids vaccinated.
So events like this are safer and just more enjoyable for all.
Live stream the exclusive Red Carpet pre-show March 22nd at 7/6 Central on iHeartRadio's Facebook and YouTube channel.
Thank you guys so much.
Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov.
Last year, Lowe's completed 100 impact projects in communities across the U.S. as part of 100 hometowns, benefiting more than 1 million Americans. This year, they'd love to do even more. Nominate your hometown project in need by March 28th. Visit Lowe's.com/hometowns to learn more.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, coming up on the need for that top of the hour news break here. But we are, of course, doing those comments and calls throughout the hour, dipping into the comment stream here a bit right now. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are the places that you can find us to both see the show, participate in that way if you want to, comment in there. But, of course, the phone line is also open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Some quite the prognostication going on in our comments over here. Michael Paz saying, if I wrote it, it's true. All right, so it is written. It's very big energy you got right there with it. But then going into further some of the analysis we're talking about here, them saying liberals want to get rid of fossil fuels, but they also have no viable, workable replacement. I mean, we are looking at energy costs when it comes to renewables getting down to levels that are cheaper. But, I mean, there's also some involvement with subsidies there. Widespread use is kind of a question here. A little bit of that work kind of happening in our region, whereas, El Paso Electric has been working on megawatt-scale utilities, battery backups, solar panels. So it's not there yet, fully agree. But the idea of there being at least a central distribution makes a little bit of sense in the meantime. But, I don't think we're going to kick the can when it comes to gas can anyway for quite some time. I'll kind of expect that it's possible. Whether or not we follow through on it, it's possible within my lifetime, but I mean, so are potentially self-driving cars. I got my own issues with that. Not exactly the same thing here, but RJ also chiming in on that. Let's all use more energy to make a windmill or solar panel than it will produce in its lifetime. That makes good sense here. I mean, there are a lot of logistical problems that come along with it, but just again, conceptually, pure conception and none of the logistics that would take to put it into place. The idea of having a central distribution of electricity, shall we say, then going to vehicles as opposed to having to use fuel to transport fuel to then fuel up the things that are then going to be used to drive around and then have to be fueled up later. I mean, it makes a certain level of sense, even if there are, again, when you're not looking too closely at it, it kind of works. But the simple answer is we aren't there yet. I know one of the concerns coming up lately is, of course, the whole cost of it, because even though it was pretty much, like Super Bowl last year, the commercials that came out of it were kind of the exclamation point seeming to come out of the automobile industry, or I guess we're going to have to call that different because we're talking about not being engine-based anymore, but being, motor-based. Is that the right way to put it here? Because when we're looking at all of them putting out all their commercials about all of their intentions to do increasingly electrified cars, hybrid's been around for a while now. Of course, there have been some electric cars. Tesla, easily the most famous among all of them. They get a lot of flack comes out of the idea of having to buy a $60,000 plus car. They do have a slightly more economy model, but that's really, I think, where all the other major manufacturers, Ford, Chevy, etc., are going to be targeting on, is that intermediate market. It's still decently expensive. We're talking most of them new, running right about $30,000, which is still a pretty far stretch for most. And the question about support for it, because you take to your average mechanic shop, it's been a slow kind of evolution happening there, but most standard mechanic shops not necessarily able to handle that kind of a situation. So I think that if we really want to see that kind of a transition, whether it's feasible or not into the future here, it's got to be maybe a little bit more push happening from, the government here, but as opposed to the kind of drop dead that we're seeing about it, okay, just stop using everything else and make the switch. Good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor. Not a great policy in my mind, but whether or not it can be feasible in the future, I think that some of the technology is in place to do it here. I mean, the vehicles themselves can run, even if there are the major questions that come even further along with the, okay, what about the life cycle of the batteries and the time that it takes to do what recycling you can? The black sludge, I think, is the technical term that comes with the what's left over of the current recycling technology. I have immense faith in the free enterprise system that there will be eventually someone that there's enough monetary incentive behind it, they'll find a solution for that. But then the same kind of situation with windmill blades, of course, that we encounter a lot of the time. I can't count the number of times I have been stopped by a windmill blade, particularly at that I-10 and Artcraft intersection over there, as a giant piece of white wing blade is then having to snake its way through that intersection. It happens. I tend not to take that intersection, to be perfectly honest. Even if I'm going over to the West Town Marketplace, I'll approach it from a completely different direction here. Michael Pato is saying that California is a perfect example that green energy does not work. I mean, I'm not going to lay all the problems of California on green energy, but maybe more of the people who have made those kind of decisions for it. But that's a whole nother kettle of fish, honestly, because there's a whole lot of reasons I don't live in California, and there are a lot of people who are also making that same kind of a decision and ending up in Texas. Absolutely. RJ calling me out for it. Tell you what, we'll have to get into that here more in the next segment here, because we are already due for that top of the hour break here. So coming out of the break, we'll get more into these topics, more of the things affecting us in the borderland, and of course, more of your comments and calls, because that's what we're going to be doing. So stay tuned. We'll talk El Paso. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso and the top of the hour news. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard northbound at Hondo Pass, a stalled vehicle is blocking the left lane. I-10 eastbound at Thorne, another stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. George Dieter northbound at Rojas Drive, and police responding to an accident there. You can use Pullman driver Zaragoza as alternates. And Wrestler at Pitt, an injury accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Only in the forest can you see this. And this. And this. But nothing beats the moment you see that.
Cool!
That's your child's eyes opening up to a world of possibilities.
I didn't know it could do that!
Because one trip to the forest can spark a world of difference.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go, like hiking, canoeing, fishing, or camping. Or create your own adventure with family and friends, and you might just see this. Your moment's out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org. That's discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House says China is not being clear as to whether or not they're backing Russia in their ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said China must decide which side it's going to stand with. That followed a nearly 2-hour call between President Biden and Chinese President Xi. Wall Street is ending the week on a high note. Stocks extended their rally for a fourth straight day despite uncertainty over the war. Tech shares led the market higher as stocks posted their best week since 2020. At the closing bell, the Dow rose 274 points to 34,754. The White House is bracing for some harsh Republican attacks when Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson testifies in Senate confirmation hearings next week. Press Secretary Jen Psaki called it a last-ditch effort to trash Jackson's reputation.
Judge Jackson, as you know, has a whole team of people internally and externally who has been helping her through the preparation process. And she, which won't surprise anyone, started studying and practicing as soon as she was nominated.
Psaki argued some attacks that have already been leveled have taken Jackson's record wildly out of context. President Biden nominated the federal judge to replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. The price of a home isn't getting any cheaper. Lisa Taylor reports.
The median price for an existing home sold last month topped $357,000. That's a 15% jump from 1 year ago. The figure came as the National Association of Realtors revealed sales dropped by more than 7% in February to a rate of just over 6 million units. The group's chief economist said the coming jump in mortgage rates will make things very interesting.
A former state lawmaker in West Virginia is pleading guilty to his role in last year's Capitol riot. Derek Evans is a Republican who resigned from the State House after being arrested. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Congress is taking up the issue of security at historically black colleges and universities following dozens of high-profile bomb threats this year. Trey Thomas reports.
A House committee met Thursday along with officials from the Department of Education, the FBI, and HBCU students. A member of the FBI's intelligence branch told the hearing that their probes into the threats now include the Bureau's Cyber and Weapons of Mass Destruction divisions. The hearing came a day after Vice President Kamala Harris announced a new grant program for the more than 50 HBCUs that have received bomb threats.
It pays to be the leader of one of the companies credited with developing a coronavirus vaccine. CNBC reports Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla made more than $24 million last year. That's a 15% increase from 2020. The revelation comes as Pfizer's profit hit nearly $22 billion as COVID vaccines began rolling out around the U.S. and the world last year. NASA is rolling out the most powerful rocket it's ever built ahead of a test flight this spring.
The towering SLS rocket is nearly twice the size of the old space shuttle and even more powerful than the rocket that sent humans to the moon more than 50 years ago.
It's a little bit shorter today than the Saturn V was, but it actually has more thrust. It's more powerful and can lift more to orbit.
NASA's Scott Wilson says the Artemis 1 mission launching this spring will be a test of the new Orion capsule, sending it around the moon. The SLS can send almost 100,000 pounds of cargo into space, critical for setting up colonies on the moon and Mars. At the Kennedy Space Center, I'm Rory O'Neill.
Two Kentucky men have a big fish story to tell. Michael Robinson and Terry Raymer were fishing on the Ohio River Tuesday when they caught a blue catfish. This was no ordinary catfish, as Big Blue weighed nearly 95 pounds. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Celebrate the music you loved listening to all year.
Plus, your favorite artists will take home iHeartRadio Music Awards.
iHeartRadio! Don't miss our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Awards.
Watch exclusively on Fox.
This Tuesday night at 7.
We're all looking forward to getting back to real-life moments. Thanks to COVID vaccines that help prevent severe illness, we can do this. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is proud to help celebrate the iHeartRadio Music Awards. Visit vaccines.gov today.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Wondernauts, a potentially untrue tale based on actual events. A young boy is shoved into a washing machine and vanishes. His friends try to rescue him, only to discover a magical world beyond the machine. Season 1 stars Ed Asner and me, John Cameron Mitchell.
Find J.D. Belzell and bring him back home safely.
Listen to the Laundronauts on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming on the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the YouTube channel, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk, twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, the correct way to say that. Anyway, we're talking about a lot of things here today, but we'll get into a whole lot more because, well, that's what we do here on Fridays. We keep those phone lines open and those comments coming in throughout the program, and we'll talk about a whole bunch of them here. So if you're wanting to do the conversationality of it, the phone calls can have a little bit of. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Delving a little bit here today into some of the economic issues and the things that come along with it, and of course, energy prices, oil and gas, things like that, and a whole lot of questions coming in, and some I just kind of laugh at. We're going to comment with a decent point. Your elected officials are not leading by example. White House Cadillac / stretch limos still utilized here. Conventional fuel, I think you're talking about there. And John Kerry, who I could see launch into the sun and not even care that much, using a private jet to attend a climate conference is not a convincing optic. Yeah, it's a... say what you will about Greta Thunberg. At least she tends to walk the walk, or sail the boat in some cases, taking months to cross the Atlantic in some cases. So I know, I'm sure that's a very hot topic for a lot of y'all, but at least in that case, and you see why a whole lot of people aren't willing, that are otherwise espousing similar-ish beliefs, aren't willing to take that step here. But the one that has just got me rolling during this break here, look like we've broken out the haterade a little bit early on a Friday here. Andrew Ziggurat saying, how weird that I, Andrew, who considers myself an intellect, I can't even get through the statement here. Who told you I was an intellectual? Because you're getting some bad information out there, my dude, if you really think that is. I'm just a guy that likes talking about our area and tries to be as informed as possible about it. But intellectual, I don't think I deserve that phrase or fit the need there. But to continue on with this comment here, as soon as I get past that part of the phrase, you do not see that solar/electric vehicles are not, nor will ever be, a viable alternative to petroleum fuels. Okay, I mean, I take your point here, but I also think you're misunderstanding my point, because I'm not even talking about full renewabilization, if that's a phrase, of the grid here. May or may not be possible, but I'm talking more about electrification of transportation, a phrase brought up by our guest previous this week, Jack Kerfoot, who has studied such things and has his own perspectives on it. I find that instructive anyway. But again, talking about centralized distribution of energy then going to vehicles, this does not necessarily mean that it has to be all renewable. I fully expect that there will still be, again, I'd be surprised if in my lifetime we even reach electrification of transportation, but even then, there will probably still be oil, gas, probably more natural gas than anything, or even other types of power plants. What I would also love to see, and does not come up enough is also the idea of nuclear involved in that. Because, sure, I mean, right now, nuclear has been in a focus in, well, the Ukraine in conflict and the focus on those and the shelling of those in a not great way. And sure, that is a bad situation in a whole variety of ways. But the idea of having there being more centralized distribution as opposed to you literally spending fuel to transport fuel to then allow people to fuel up. I mean, it makes a certain level of sense here, but I wouldn't expect in any way that it would be able to be 100% quote-unquote renewables anytime. So there are some wild proposals out there, amongst other things, when it comes to how to even store the energy, because battery technology, particularly utility scale, some experiments going on in our area, including El Paso Electric at NMSU, looking on the single megawatt scale. So it wouldn't really be enough to truly deal with any kind of serious shortfalls, but it's a test. They're seeing how it'll work even within you get that big. But there are logistical issues. Some of the crazy proposals I've seen out there would be the idea of setting up lakes where one is slightly off of the other here and allowing the water to flow through a hydroelectric dam until it reaches about even to generate power when needed, and then otherwise running it in reverse to then pump up water above when there's lack of demand or when power can be generated from the renewables to then allow it to be stored, or even just stacking up giant concrete blocks and using the potential energy that comes through that. Essentially, same kind of way. You run a generator to move the crane to stack the blocks when power is being generated, and when you need to then have it be put back into the grid, the power, you then basically have it run as a dynamo, and then the lowering of gravity of the blocks then generating power. Again, that's the issue that we come into when we're talking about true electrification of transportation, is the power storage systems, because you don't always want energy when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing. Sometimes you want it at night and when the winds are calm. So the issues that come along with that are the major ones to be done there. But I'm not getting over the intellectual stuff, and the people who pile on that are fun that come along with it. Louis Pinato saying further, oil development has nothing to do with environmental concerns or political puppets are being paid to stifle our oil industry. I have no doubt that there are more than a few political motivations out here. But I mean, again, you got to look at the costs of developing oil have increased greatly. I mean, there are more technological solutions that will likely come along. I mean, the whole fracking revolution that we've seen in the United States, even if that's a serious NIMBY issue, not in my backyard, has come along because, A, new technology was developed, but also because oil prices got high enough to justify that level of exploration. So more of that could happen, but it's kind of where there's trajectories that you can review, and if it's not taking at least a thought towards how that's going to work in the future, it's not going to be, well, you're not going to have a good time that comes along with it here. More conversation going on here, but let's get to some of those calls as well. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, Andrew, and good afternoon, El Paso.
No, sure thing. Good afternoon to you as well. What's on your mind?
Yeah, just wanted to make a comment concerning one of your previous callers, where he said he didn't feel safe in El Paso anymore. Am I correct?
God, that was kind of less safe anyway, if not totally, completely unsafe in the area. That seems fair to say.
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't go to Juarez, for one. And when I did, forget it. It was just near the bridge, and that was it. But there's an average of about 5 to 6 homicides a day in Juarez. I mean, they are constantly finding dismembered bodies throughout the city. Number two, back in the October of 2021, actually October 18th, KTSM had an article from Advisor Smith that El Paso was the third safest, largest city. I don't know if you recall that.
I do recall that, and that's kind of the way that El Paso has been talked about as the safest city in the country, safest large city, because, I mean, usually we can count, okay, at the very least homicides on your digits here, and it usually doesn't go over that. We've seen, at least in numbers of that, over the course of the pandemic, coming up a bit, it seems like. I haven't seen absolute numbers that I can directly point to, but I mean, there's just been more violent crime, more threats of violent crime anyway that we have seen here. So, I mean, I think we're still up there because, yeah, you compare us to like your Houstons, your New Yorks, your DCs, your LAs, or San Franciscos. We're doing pretty well, but I will say that it's not also wrong to say that things may be seeming to be a little bit dicier out there.
True. Also, when it comes to sex offenders, the research shows, and I've seen it in my profession, but sex offenders have the least recidivism rate of any type of offenders.
I haven't seen that myself. I would like to believe it, but again, some of the local problems we're seeing, particularly with that facility out on Horizon Boulevard, is it seems to be more focused on the management of that facility. Though I will say, of any type of person to be not responding to a facility, the sex offenders concern me, if not the highest, definitely in the top 3.
Yes, well, I believe that's a private facility also. But also, I wanted to say, reference the constitutional carry. I believe there's another state that came in where constitutional carry was signed into law, and that was Ohio. So now 44% of the states are now constitutional carry.
Yep. Constitutional carry now law in Ohio from multiple sources here. So, I mean, there has been quite the wave of that has come across the country. Usually, I mean, when I was first looking at this kind of stuff, educating myself and learning, okay, what are the laws? What do I need to do? What do I need to know? If particularly I'm going to travel through there, or just doing my own background, the whole may issue, shall issue, which was basically a difference of if you make the application for concealed carry, they will just give it to you, or it's up to then your usually local sheriff or other top law enforcement official to do it. And so the permissibility was at question here. But yeah, we've seen quite the wave over the last decade and change of that change being made here, and frankly in favor of it, as long as people are following through with the responsible part of the responsibly armed citizen here, and not just thinking that, well, I've got a gun and I'm good, because that's like saying, well, I bought a car, I need nothing else along terms of education or ability to use this device.
True. And last but not least, one of your callers yesterday was talking about dictators. Well, just wanted to bring to his attention a big-time leftist dictator. And like I say, I cite my sources based on the APA format, 7th edition. Kim Jong-un, okay, he is one of the biggest leftist dictators known to date. And there was an ABC News article from June 14th of 2018. He's basically a member of the Central Committee Workers' Party of Korea, which that is as far left as you can get.
This is an important bit we'll get into there, but we'll have to get to that a little bit because we have more discussion coming up on that actually when it comes to the pound 250 calls, because yeah, that tends to stir people up. But I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about left-wing versus right-wing dictators, I mean, they're all along the spectrum. I mean, well, usually on the extremes of the spectrum more specifically, because yeah, the people who are like, hey, let's try to balance out and find the way forward tend not to be the ones usually. I mean, history is full of contradictions and rules, things that break the rule, but generally they tend to be the ones that are the most extreme either way, that find themselves holding the whole absolute power and it then corrupting absolutely.
Very, very true, very true. Anyway, have a good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, good points to get into here, and we got a lot more coming up here, so thank you for the point in the call. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We got to take a break right now. I know we got more calls on the line, and we will get to there and them here in just a second here, but back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Again, a lot more we're talking about here today, but we'll get to those calls and more of the comments here as we do on Fridays. So the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break, more Talk El Paso. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got slow traffic on Loop 375 southbound between Vista del Sol and Bob Hope, about a 5-minute delay. On the I-10 westbound from Wrestler to Thorne, it's about a 5-minute setback. George Dieter Drive northbound at Rojas, an accident reported there. Sunland Park Drive at Cadiz and Crestmont Drive, police responding to an accident there. Take South Mesa Hills or North Mesa Street can be an alternate too. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
New to Curiosity Stream, animals with bulletproof skin, impenetrable scales, and poison-tipped spines? They may look strange, but they've got a serious defensive edge. It's nature's oddballs. Plus, archaeologists in Egypt had hit the mother lode, an ancient burial complex with dozens of sarcophagi. Who were they? Explore this newfound necropolis on Tombs of Egypt. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Asthma symptoms can attack anywhere, like on a city street. Now you can get fast relief anywhere with new improved Primatene Mist, the only FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. So whether you need relief of symptoms at the park or at your kitchen table, Primatene Mist starts working quickly, opening up your airways to restore free breathing. For temporary relief of mild symptoms of intermittent asthma, use Primatene Mist and breathe easy again. Available at CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. Use as directed.
More than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, with more than 11 million family members and friends serving as caregivers. The toll of the disease is monumental, and no one should face Alzheimer's or dementia by themselves. Free help is available 24/7. For resources and support, visit the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org or call the helpline at 800-272-3900. You are not alone.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show here. Of course, we're doing a lot of them here today because for Friday, we're taking on all those comments and calls throughout both hours of the show here. So if you wanted to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Full up at the moment here, but let's also delve into some of those comments coming on right over here. I'm Michael Pettis with the more discussion about energy, which we seem to have been very focused on these past couple of weeks. More energy goes into making a coal-powered / electric vehicle than regular vehicle. Electric vehicle batteries are toxic waste that cannot be recycled. Partially, currently, I expect that there would be a solution that someone comes up with to deal with the rest of it here. But, I mean, it's one thing to be focused on the, oh, that's waste and that's bad. But if you're not also looking at the same lens of what is currently produced by the energy industry, you're kind of missing half the picture here, and, biases come into it. Again, being worried about what's going into the environment is a perfectly reasonable thing to go through, but if you're only looking at half the way, literally missing the other half of it. John Brazelton with one of the more reasonable analyses I'm hearing about this, that Texas will still run on gas and diesel when everyone else on the left and East Coast are totally green. That, I could see that happening pretty easily, actually, even if there's, and Julie Lupin, I was saying, yep, green and can't drive or watch commie TV here. I mean, Darjay kind of going into another point here. There ain't nothing green about green except dollars for the carbon taxing entities and benefactors. Greenwashing is a thing. Saying, remember back a while ago, I mean, there was actually, remember the King of the Hill episode that lives rent-free in my head about carbon offsets, and there was the owner of the propane store, Green Machine, I buy carbon offsets, whether or not it was ever actually happening or not. And that was true. So they kind of went away, but it kind of seems like they're coming back. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it here. Michael Pato is also saying that nuclear is truly carbon-free, but Democrats don't want nuclear because the Green New Deal is about controlling people and limiting energy. I mean, of all of the forms of energy that have NIMBY problems, I mean, nuclear is kind of the king of it. Because everyone likes the idea of, cheaper energy and it's reliable and lasts for a long time. Sure, but I don't want to be anywhere near it. I mean, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Isle, the names abound with the problems that come with it. But let's get to more of those calls here right now as well. The number to call, 915-544-5876, for KTSM. Do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew. Have you heard about the shocking news from yesterday? I mean, it just floored me.
I guess you're going to be a little bit more specific because there's a lot that comes out every day.
The laptop. I mean, Biden's son, Hunter, they found the laptop a while back, and they were they've got a whole bunch of interesting information about him doing crack, and also having things about dealings with Russia and China and Ukraine. All these. Yeah, did you hear about that?
Yes, I did. Specifically, the New York Times report that it was kind of not exactly buried, but it wasn't really the top of it here, talking about that, yes, it has been found and that more revelations were coming out about it. Did hear about that, absolutely.
But the New York Times, when this came out, they said it was Russian disinformation. And that this was not anything. And this was just before the election. They had a guy named Bob Alinsky that was on Tucker Carlson, and he told all about what his relationship was with President Biden and Hunter, and the whole crime family of the Bidens and everything. But they said it was Russian information. And I mean, do you believe? Okay, getting real serious. Okay, this is grounds for impeachment. Our president is compromised. He has had dealings with China. He's had dealings with Ukraine. He's had payments made from Russia. There's all sorts of things. If the Republicans do not impeach at this point, there is no hope for our country, because the Republican Party is no better than what the Democrats are on.
Ben, we're getting a lot of background noise for this. I'm going to put you off the top of the line here real quick. But, I mean, addressing the general concerns here, I mean, okay, just reading the New York Times headline that did come out yesterday on that, Hunter Biden paid tax bill, but broad federal investigation continues. Justice Department inquiry into the business dealings of the president's son has remained active, with the grand jury seeking information about payments from around the world. And this is the one generating a lot of those other reports, I do believe, being talked about otherwise. So, I mean, definitely concerning. And I've long said that if truth is out there, it needs to come out on this and other controversial topics. So would love to see a full investigation into this as well. I mean, I will perfectly freely admit that I've stayed away from this story because it's been a bit of a bag of cats. But, I mean, this thread needs to be pulled until we get to the bottom of it here. So I fully agree with you there. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot to be concerned here. I would agree with you.
This is the biggest story of the year. Hello?
Yeah, Ben, you're there.
Yeah. This is the biggest story of the year. I mean, the president of the United States, present president of the United States, is, is compromised. And the Republican Party, I mean, the Democrats would have no problems bringing up charges against Donald Trump. Why aren't they bringing up charges of impeachment? And I would imagine there would be a couple of Democrats that would want to look into this also, if they Joe Manchin, maybe Kristen Sinema, and everything. But it should be brought up.
What about, again,
more by some of our quote conservative Republicans.
Here's my expectation on that, then, if you want to get into the technical nature of it. I mean, given that there is the majority in Congress of Democrats and that 50-50 plus one in the Senate, here's my expectation, that there will be rumblings and maybe some articles or bills being filed, kind of things, but it'll take probably to the midterms, just logistically speaking, because there's anything that can be learned from the impeachment attempts of the previous administration, that standing on ceremony doesn't exactly work, even if you disagree with the standpoint they were coming from. Those were doomed to fail from the beginning because, well, the parties and the layout that was happening in the legislature at that point in time did not support the outcome that was being sought by the litigating parties. So if there's anything that can be learned from that, is that you have to have, because impeachment as much as it's talked about as a legal proceeding, is not a court of law. It's a political process. So there are political realities that have to go along with it. So my cloudy crystal ball prediction would be that there may be, again, rumblings, but that it will take the midterms and the outcome of the midterms basically defining how this action will go going forward.
So if somebody attacks our republic in the middle of his term in office, you can't bring up the conversation about this. I mean, the Republicans can bring it up. They don't. Of course, they don't have a chance in heck of getting it through to a committee, but they need to bring it up. They have to show that they've got some cojones, and if they don't, then what use are they?
Well, that's a very good question, and one that often comes up involving Congress here. But more specifically, I mean, again, if we're talking about an actual physical attack and, the president saying, oh, by the way, we're welcoming the invaders, yeah, I think impeachment would come up a little bit sooner than that. But basically barring literal national emergency levels of things, and not to be debating in semantics on whether this reaches that or not, but I mean, in kind of absolute political terms, I don't think this will reach that until the midterms. They'll probably bring it up, again, maybe even some things being filed. I mean, we've already heard threats being made about impeachment proceedings since the literal start of this administration. So the rumblings were, frankly, already there. This will probably ratchet them up to a whole nother level. We'll fully agree with you that. But again, if you want to talk about rubber hitting the road, my expectation, call it prognostication, you will, but my crystal ball is cloudy at best. That is my expectations that midterms you will really then see a ramp up in this, exempt of other circumstances coming forward in the interim, of course.
This is not a national emergency where what we're doing in Ukraine, the relationship we have with Russia and China, very, very prominent players in possible nuclear war. This information should wait until the midterms.
Okay. You hear me clearly as what I am saying here is that I'm not even saying that this would fall to that level here, but there is a bit of a difference between this and a literal invasion, an attack as you described it. But again, more specifically, I'm not saying that that's what should happen. I'm saying this is what I expect to happen. What should happen is there be a full investigation of this, completely unpartisan, probably an outside agency from Congress getting to the bottom of this. That's probably what should happen, but what I expect to happen, because what it should happen theoretically in the world is very different from what often does end up happening. So let me just be clear about that here. All right, tell you what, we are overdue for this next break right now, so we got to get to that here. So we will take more calls on the line here. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Amanda Guillen. NMSU's big win against UConn had Aggies fans celebrating all over the borderland last night. The Aggies pulling off the upset against the 5th seed Huskies. It was definitely a nail-biter until the very end. Now, although it was a tight game, fans we spoke with say they're confident the Aggies can do it again in the next round. Now, NMSU takes on the 4th-ranked Arkansas tomorrow at 6:40 right here on CBS 4. And investigators say a 13-year-old boy was behind the wheel when a pickup truck slammed into a van, killing 9 people in West Texas. 7 of the victims were members of a golf team and their coach from the University of the Southwest in Hobbs. Now, the boy in the pickup and a passenger in his truck were also killed. Investigators say a tire blew out on the pickup right before the crash happened on Tuesday night in Andrews County. That's about 4 hours east of El Paso. With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Amanda Guillen.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Not seeing a lot of problems on your El Paso freeways. I-10 westbound, a little slow between Wrestler and Artcraft, about a 5-minute delay. Loop 375 southbound at Montana, stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. Police responding to a crash at Lee Street and at Edward James Avenue, that's just south of Edgemere, and Sunland Park at Cadiz Street. An accident there, you could say South Mesa Hills to get around it. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We had plenty of cloud cover and a cooler day for our Friday, but now, as we get going into the weekend, it is going to turn out to be a lot nicer. In fact, we've got warming temperatures, and we will see the return of near 80-degree temperatures on Sunday. The unfortunate part is we'll also see our next weather maker on Sunday bringing back more winds and dust and a shot of some rain to kick off next week.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Is your current home loan the right fit for you? Near historically low rates combined with rising home values means that you could have more home equity than you might imagine. And if you're considering a refi, an expertly chosen loan from Loan Depot could save you thousands. Ask about our smart term loans, cash out, and over 300 loan options to find just the right mortgage loan for you. Call now, 866-888-LOAN, or go to loandepot.com. Loan Depot, where home means everything. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. And MLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation. Who's the big boy?
You are.
Who's going to take care of us when we retire?
It's gonna be you.
You're going to make sure we don't end up in a retirement home.
Or if we do, it's a really nice one.
With tango lessons.
And bocce ball.
And a community pool. Oh. Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, because we, of course, have got, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app and all the social media pages. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there. RJ, Michael Pattis, John Brazelton, and more, leaving their comments. Louis Panato as well. So, and people, dropping likes and such. More than welcome to Michael Pattis, Ion Grimm, Michael Robert Tipton. A lot of stuff we get into over here. But, of course, that's what we do on Fridays, getting into all of the comments here on the open carry or constitutional carry issue. John Brazelton pointing out, just don't shoot anybody. You go bankrupt after all these civil lawsuits. That is very true, because you can be in the most justified shooting of all, but lack of criminal prosecution does not confer immunity from civil liability. That's the phrase they drill into you. And the, Texas concealed handgun carry course anyway, which if you're planning at all to have that kind of to carry, it would behoove you to make sure you're the most licensed and covered individual ever, because if you ever actually have to use it, even an idea of actually having to use it, you better have a whole lot backing you up, and that's just another level of it here. Anyway, get to more calls on the line here. Again, number to call 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Harry on the east side here with us right now. Harry, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Andrew, good morning, Vietnam. I'll never forget those words. Adrian Cronar, Air Force Tech Sergeant, got kicked off the radio for telling the truth. So I know we're all being truthful. Happy Open Line Friday, everybody. I'll tell you what, I always try to put a little lighter side here on the program, the great program. I tried to rack my brains and to try to come up with something intelligent to say, commenting on Ukraine and Russia. And the only thing I could come up with is death, destruction, and displacement. They're all very firm. They're all very permanent, unless you've ever been part of any of those, well, the death part, is because of a weak leader on our side. And I'm not going to get into any name calling or anything. He's just a weak leader and a crazed land grabber individual on the other side. And voila, you got yourself a war. You got yourself a war. And as I had said previously, it's always the other guy that everything's happening to until you become the other guy. Okay, so that's just kind of my dissertation on that. It's a hard subject for me to get into, and probably for most of the listeners, are great listeners. But my last comment, Andrew, will be this. They've got an old saying in Hollywood: break a leg, okay, on your debut for your Saturday morning El Paso history show.
I appreciate it. I mean, I'm very excited about it here, just as planning to do a plug at the end of the show, but might as well here. Tomorrow we're going to be talking with the Celebrations of Our Mountains folks about both what is going on, what they have going on, and how you can go out and enjoy our natural landscape, but then more deeply on the history side of it, how that natural landscape came to be, how the landscape that defines our lives, the Franklin Mountains, the whole southern tip of the Rocky Mountains we inhabit, and some of the interesting geologic features, Kilburn's Hole, Waco tanks, White Sands, Mount Restore, how that came to be, and also the fact that our area has been covered by oceans 11 times throughout geologic history. I'm fascinated by it. If you want to join in on that, that's tomorrow 10 to noon right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. But I appreciate the encouragement, and I'm sure we'll have a good one here. Excited to talk with Jim Tolbert and Eric Kappas with Celebration of Our Mountains about that.
Well, just let me make another statement. We're not related, and I'm not getting paid for this. So, folks, turn the radios on at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Okay, Andrew, that's all I got.
No, I appreciate it. No, thank you very much for the point in the call here. I mean, I'm excited to talk about El Paso history. I mean, we'll talk more about it tomorrow here, but I was more or less literally raised on it and the study of it here, and have always been baffled that we don't do more with it. So we'll do the best we can in getting it information out there. So thank you for the point and the call here. Give another couple calls here before we hit that next break here. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. First of all, I think President Biden, he gets an A from me for his handling of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. I, like most Americans, do not want our troops or Air Force taking on the Russians directly. Other than that, we should help Ukraine in every way we can and punish Putin and his fellow kleptocrats and Russia in every way we can. Now, recently, a former Russian KGB spy announced that Russia recruited Trump and groomed him to be their asset over 40 years ago by exploiting Trump's extreme intellectual vulnerability and the fact that he's psychologically prone to flattery. Trump has also called Russia's war against Ukraine a Holocaust. Good for saying that, okay, Trump? But he has yet to condemn and denounce Putin. On the other hand, President Biden has called Putin a war criminal. Now, if Trump believes that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a Holocaust, then it would follow that Putin is a war criminal, but he can't get himself to say that. You know, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat the errors of the past. I'm sure you've heard that saying too, Andrew. And former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, I really can't say her name, who Trump fired, recently said that President Donald Trump's policies enable Putin. And Trump keeps on trying to rewrite his presidency as something other than the unmitigated disaster that it was. But meanwhile, political historians continue to rank him as one of the worst presidents in the United States history. Last but not least, Russian money to Republicans. GOP campaigns have taken about $7 million from oligarchs from Russia, linked to Russia. Mitch McConnell, Moscow Mitch, $2.5 million. Marco Rubio, we should call him, Moscow Marco Rubio also, $1.5 million. Scott Walker, $1 million. Lapdog Lindsey Graham, that guy, what a wooz, that guy, $800,000 from the Russians. So that's my thinking on those things. What do you think, Andrew?
Well, okay, if you want to be specific on Trump's statements on Putin here, I mean, Trump had a predilection for certain types of international leaders. That much is essentially public record here. What he has said most recently here is that he is surprised about Putin's actions here, calling it a very bad thing for the world, whether you're not willing to call that a denouncement, but very clearly unhappy with the way it's going on here. But I'm not here to defend any of our world leaders or current or former U.S. presidents on what they have to say about other leaders. I mean, again, I do agree that Putin is a otherwise savvy individual, but there's a difference between respecting your enemies and, well, liking them and what they are do here. I do recall some T-shirts about I'd rather be a Russian than insert political party here. So I would love to see us getting to the bottom of all of the foreign influence within our elections from all of the avenues that they come from. Really what it comes down to for me, because any of it, any level of it is kind of unacceptable in a variety of ways. I mean, we've been told about actors who have been trying to, state actors, I mean, in this case, trying to essentially get in and exert influence on a variety of different, both elected officials, organizations, those kind of things. And all of that should be rooted out. I don't feel like that should be controversial to say here, but this whole finger pointing back and forth, oh, well, you've done it more than we have, or yeah, you're the one who's worse about it, I find not terrifically useful, because any level of it, to quote a different show, evil, greater, lesser, middling, is still evil when it comes down to it here, because, I mean, it's a serious issue, and it really should be viewed that way. And, okay, just to quote Donald Trump from what he's most recently said, that when he went into the Ukraine, I think he's changed. I think he's changed. A very sad thing for the world. He's very much changed. Trump addressing Putin there. So, again, don't get me in a position where I have to defend any one of our world leaders. I'm not really interested in doing so, but really want to get to it. It's bad at any level, and I think hindsight 2020, yeah, I wouldn't have, previous to invasion, wouldn't have minded a better relationship with Russia, but, well, given the actions of that particular individual and the course he has now set the world on, I think it's out the window for the foreseeable future here. All right, we're going to take one more quick call before we hit that next break here. We do have, I believe, Frankie Messia. Frankie, you there with us? All right, I think we...
Hey, Andrew!
Frankie.
Andrew!
Yes.
This is Messiah Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
I can't let this go. This is outrageous. So much to say, so little time to say it. Well, I heard that Andrew guy, all right, going on and said Kim Jong-un is a leftist? I say you off the wall? What is this nonsense? This guy is so off the most horrible human conservative kook ever. There's no such thing. I say it again. I sound like a broken record here. I swear to God by all of you out there, there is no such thing as a leftist, liberal, tyrant, dictator, autocrat. Nothing. You go on like this, awful Andrew, and keep telling me that, or anybody out there, that these people are leftist. You're off the wall. You're like a wound up rubber band trying to find out anything in the world to prove your particular point. And you have got nothing. There is no such thing as a liberal tyrant. End of story.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question there, Frankie. What is your definition, then, of liberal?
Liberal is lively, lovable, and lively. We're progressive. Me, I'm a liberal. I am so liberal that I only make left turns. I will never make a right turn. But that's not the point. I will tell you, a liberal is for the progression of humanity, for the progression of moving this whole entire thought process of society forward, where conservatives are stuck in the mud. They want to keep everything to themselves. Once they get what they get, they don't want to share it with anybody. I got what I want. You can't take any. You're going to be my slave. I will conquer you. But that's not what a liberal does. What do you think of that?
Okay, well, let me tell you what I think about that. There's a theory out there about the way political affiliation happens, because a lot of us tend to think of it as a scale. You're either left wing or you're right wing, or you fall somewhere in between. Most people probably fall somewhere in between, but people at the extremes tend to be the loudest on this kind of a thing. But there's an addendum to that I think much more accurately describes the world, not as a single line, but rather as a horseshoe theory. That is, the more extreme you get to the political extremes, because there's another axis to consider here of, well, essentially authoritarianism, that the further down you get on it, the closer the ends actually tend to end up being, hence the horseshoe name of it, but also the more extreme methods that are then willing to be considered when it comes to implementing what you want to see, the whole authoritarianism part of it. And that, once you get to the extremes of either side of the political ideology scale, even if I think there's more than even just that access, the more people tend to be willing to then use, force to ensure what they want to have in place is there. So that's what I think about it. But tell you what, we got to get more of that here in just a second because we are overdue for a break. We're going to squeeze in what we can for the last of the show here, but we got a lot more than we can get to even in 2 hours here. So back after this break with more Talk El Paso to close out the week, squeeze another call or two, and get to a lot more with it. Hopefully getting to more of the answers here. But back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Road's looking pretty good for a Friday. I-10 eastbound at Porfirio Diaz, a disabled vehicle's blocking the right shoulder. On the Loop 375 southbound at Montana, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder there. I-10 westbound, some slowing starting at Wrestler Drive and Vista del Sol Drive east of Yarborough at Vista del Oro Drive. Injury accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-230-2777. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-230-2777. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-230-2777. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-230-2777. 800-230-2777.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We got a lot that we've gotten into today and a lot more that we will get to here. More messages coming in already. We've had a hell of a free-for-all Friday here. Just a couple of notes on what's coming up here on the program. Going to be talking more about energy supplies, amongst other things, but also the whole nearshoring phenomenon. A company that actually focuses on that most specifically and impact in our area. What we might be seeing here, along with several other things we got working on for you and in the works. We'll keep talking about the issues here in El Paso, but couple of the comments here. Robert Haynes answers to Frankie's question, pointing out Hugo Chavez of Venezuela was a leftist dictator. Ian Grimm saying Frankie failed basic politics 101 if he took it here. RJ, give me a little bit of flack again. Asking what was I thinking with that question about definition of liberal? I tend to ask things more or less carefully, not always, okay, I'll admit. But, okay, the question keeps coming up about, oh, no, that's not a real liberal. So I want to know the definition so that we can further answer this question, because maybe not, okay, Stalin was an extreme example, but you want to talk about left-wing ideology and how he was thinking about it? I mean, Stalin strolled down the road that, like, Lenin and Trotsky laid for him in their, well, they would call themselves progressive ideology of wanting to see things progress and change. And, I mean, the whole communism versus, authoritarianism debate that comes along with it, or Nazism more specifically, is alive and well in this day and age, I would say here. But let's squeeze in another quick couple of calls here. We're going to have about a minute each. So we do have Tony on the east side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Sure, thanks. Well, first of all, I do have my opinion of a liberal. So take it for what it's worth. A liberal is liberal with sex, drugs, and other people's money. And to prove that point a little bit, well, it seems that sex traffickers and drug traffickers have a field day when there's a Democrat as president. They can flow in anything they want, and pretty much the border gets knocked down so they can have their way. And then when you get to other people's money, well, you're like the bad parent giving kids all they want when they're unemployed. Yes, we should give a hand up, but not just a handout. Mm-hmm. And my main reason for the call was we need to try to hold some people accountable. But your point is correct. We don't see much changing. Yeah, the voter ballot doesn't seem to do much good, and every 4 years it switches from one party to the other. Mm-hmm. And so that was my point. Thank you much.
Yeah, thank you very much for the point in the call there. I think, okay, locally anyway, because national gets way too hard to handle even within a 2-hour show. We just need more people involved, because that's what I think, well, at least the elected officials we currently have and future prospective ones will start having to pay a bit more attention to that and not, well, other interests. Let's put it that way. Thank you for the point in the call. I think we can squeeze in one more quick one here. We do have Nate on the east side. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. I'll be really quick. I just want to send everybody out on a great weekend. I just thank God for you, the program, for everyone out there in the radio land. And I just hope that people really can see what is happening around the world with people coming up from our south. Mm-hmm. People are leaving their countries with just whatever they got on their backs and everything. People want to come to America. There's only one. And I just hope that we cherish this and let's enjoy our weekend. Let's keep it safe out there and make it a better place for all of us. I thank you for your time, Andrew.
No, thank you for the point in the call. Always appreciate the perspective, because I think it's important to know that it is a lot of stuff we get into here, but I'm still incredibly thankful for all that I have, all that we have in this community, and will continue to do so and continue advocating for it as much as I can from this. Not exactly bully pulpit, but we'll do it again starting next week, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I want to thank everyone who did call in, comment, participate in the show. There's more than we got to here that we want to talk about, but we'll have to do it again next week. So thank everyone who participated. You help make this show what it is. We'll do it again next week. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles around the road, and have a great weekend, y'all. Tune in tomorrow, 10 to noon. See you then.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Road's looking pretty good for a Friday. I-10 eastbound at Porfirio Diaz, a disabled vehicle's blocking the right shoulder. On the Loop 375 southbound at Montana, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder there. I-10 westbound, some slowing starting at Wrestler Drive and Vista del Sol Drive east of Yarborough at Vista del Oro Drive. Injury accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
What's done more to improve over